Thank you. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here for this special call meeting. And next item on the agenda is the roll call. Mr. Safety.
Here.
Ms. Parris.
Here.
Mr. Hale.
Here.
Mr. Brock.
Here.
Mr. King.
Here.
Ms. Hamby.
Here.
Ms. Boston.
Here.
Ms. Cartney.
Here.
And Chairman is here. Okay, so everybody's here, 100%. All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Cargy approved. Second. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the budget amendments. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Harris.
Thank you. So we, as with everything, at home and at work lately, we are running into inflation times 10. So the budget amendment, the first one tonight for 141 deals with our bus budget. We have scheduled to purchase 4 regular size buses. They came in 18% higher than last year, and that was more than what we projected the increase to be. So it would just be moving some money from other transportation lines where we're going to have a surplus down to that equipment line to purchase those 4 buses.
Move to approve the amendment as presented.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Cargy made the motion. Is that Mr. King?
Wait and do all 3 of them at once?
Yes.
We can. Do you want to do all?
So I said as
Okay, you want to
presented.
do all 3?
Yep.
Okay. Is that all right?
Sure, if there's any questions on the 2 federal ones, I'd be happy to
Okay, well, we'll-
answer those, or our crew is here.
We'll do it on all 3 of them then. Okay, so I had Mr. King, was it you had the second?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so we're voting on budget amendments for 141 and 142 budget amendments. Is there any questions?
I just have one question. It has nothing to do with these. It does, but it doesn't. What do we do with surplus buses that we retire?
So typically we use them down to any usable parts. If there's seats that we can replace, if there's steering wheels that we can reuse. Windows, all of those pieces, parts, we salvage
So
and
we-
then we scrap them.
Okay, so we don't try to sell or buses.
We've not in recent history, just because once we use them, we've maxed out the mileage and we've maxed out the parts typically.
And they're done for? I mean, pretty
They're
well?
scrapped.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just was curious. That's
Do we take the scrap and take it to the scrap place and get money for the buses? Yes, we do. Okay.
Yep, we recycle.
We recycle.
And it's not very much, is it? Scrap metal's gone down in the last little bit, I believe, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It used to be up pretty good. But, okay, is there any other questions or any other discussion? Okay, once again, we're voting on budget amendments 141 budget line and 142 budget line. All in favor say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, hang on.
It's a-
We're going to do a roll call. I even made a note here to do that, and I got in a hurry. All right, Mr. Sackett,
Yes.
Ms. Parris,
Yes.
Ms. Hale,
Yes.
Mr. Brock.
Yes.
Mr. King,
Aye.
Ms. Hamby,
Yes.
Ms. Boston,
yes.
Ms. Cargy.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that was quick and easy. Thank you, appreciate it. I know with inflation and everything going on, it's hard to keep up with everything. But thank you again.
You're welcome.
Okay, next item on the agenda is for the Director of Schools search process. And I hope everybody got your emails today that we have had 2 candidates that have withdrawn. So we're down to 7 that are that has Tennessee licensure. And we talked about, at the retreat, we talked about breaking it up, and so this will make it a little bit easier. We could do 3 on one day and then 4 on another day. And now, I'm just going to throw out an idea, and then I want everybody else to throw out ideas as well. I thought maybe if we could do, like on a Friday evening, or kind of late in the afternoon, we could do the ones that's from here. We've got 2 that's here in Crossville, and then we've got 2 others that are pretty close, one in Cookeville and one in Lenore City. We could do one of those. So we'd do 3 on Friday and then 4 on Saturday.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I like that idea. The one thing I was thinking about, though, because there were so many, was maybe putting names into a hat and then drawing that way so there's no preference, since they're all, I don't care either way.
Well, I think we could do that each time. That way, but the only thing I was looking at was on Friday afternoon, getting somebody that's close here. We could do the 2 ladies that are here that's in the building, do those for sure, and one other, either the one from Cookeville or the one from Lenore City. And that way, they don't have so far to drive. And then that way on a Saturday, we could look at where they're coming from and try to schedule them accordingly so they won't have to.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. King.
in looking at our policy 5.801,
Yes, sir.
we may be in violation. We may need to take a vote to amend it. In looking at that, particularly in item or line 13, selection procedures, which shall include but not be limited to. It lists the things we're supposed to do. But also on line 9, it says that we're supposed to do this before we take applications or resumes. Establish a timeline. We've already got a job description in place. And then a process for accepting and reviewing applications. So I think maybe it would be in order to amend the policy one time to say we can skip the resume process.
You want to make that motion?
Well, I'm thinking about how we need to say it. We kind of got the cart before the horse here.
Because we did the same thing last time.
Yeah, we did it like this last time.
What
Did the
policy?
applicants turn in resumes when
What's the policy number
the
again? sir?
application?
5.801.
So we fulfilled the policy already.
Yes.
Where's that policy number?
What's the policy?
5.801.
You don't have an extra copy of that, do you?
I happen to have one.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
It would just help if we all could look
Maybe you
at
just put
it.
it on the whiteboard.
Yeah, if we just put it up there, I think that'd be good.
That'd be fine, just so we can look at it. Would you please? Thank you. 801, 5.801.
Looking at line 9 through 13 in particular.
We did the job description, we did the timeline, because we allowed them until February 23rd to put in their application.
It's the timeline for the whole process.
Well, we did come up with a process for accepting and reviewing the applications. We said that we'd go to Earl. And then the selection procedure shall include.
On the timeline, Jimmy did that. the board did not vote on the date to,
He just asked me for an idea, and I just
I'm
gave an
just saying,
idea.
we didn't do that either. While we're looking at this policy, it says the board may invite the community board employees to participate in the process. We only have one employee, plus Earl, 2 employees, to participate in the selection of a director of schools. In looking at this and kind of reaching out to other districts, just putting this out there, I'm not completely certain of how it would work. But if we got down to, let's say, 2 or 3 finalists, could we develop a panel of administrators, principals, to meet with them as well, score them, and then get those score sheets to us?
If that's what this board wants to do, we're more.
That's what number 2 says.
And I think that would be a great idea.
I think that's a good idea, and then that way, because we may employ the director of schools, but that person works with our administrators, our principals, and I would value their input.
But here's my question. And number 2 says the interview process shall include meetings with various staff and an interview with the entire board. But then the next one says that the candidate shall be interviewed by the board and only board members will be allowed to ask questions. Doesn't that just contradict each other?
They wouldn't be asking questions, they would
But
be,
the one above it says that they can.
Yeah.
An interview with the entire board if possible. So you've got a contradictory number 2 and 3.
I think number 3 refers to the interview process by the board. I think that the idea is that during the board interview, that only board members would be allowed to ask questions. I don't think that it's saying that if the board chooses to have meetings with various staff and community groups, that they couldn't allow questions. I think it just means that during the interview process with the board, that's the board interview, and that board members should ask questions during the board interview, and it shouldn't be open to audience members potentially because you've got an open meeting. So that's what I think that means.
Because the way that I'm reading it is it's almost that there's 2 different sessions. That you've got the community and the everybody else with one interview, and then you've got a second interview with the final interview. But if you're talking about the finals, so do you have 2 interviews?
pretty much.
Essentially, yes.
Essentially, yes.
I think you're right.
Traditionally, the interview process is really more of an opportunity for a community, for our community, to get to know applicants that they might not know. That is, they came from other districts, other parts of the state. And also just for the applicant to take a look at everything to see if truly this is a job that that person would like to continue to seek. I think the intent of the policy, and that is tough when you're trying to tell the intent of any law, but I think it's talking about 2 different things. Part of the research is getting to know candidates, the candidates to get to know the system. The actual interview process is the more rigid that I think, Mr. Eamon, that you're referring to.
Well,
with sitting down before the board. And of course, the community's a part of that. They want to sit and listen, so.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I did not look at this before we started this process. I was just basing everything on how we did it last time.
Yeah.
And I was not sitting in this seat last time. And so I was just going based on what we did in the past.
Right.
And
Personally, I don't see anything wrong with everything that we've got planned, and everything pretty much that we've done. Now, you could leave it up to a judge on trying to decide if the intent of the rules was followed or what was the intent of the original rules. But I think our intent has been open, because we've not decided anything officially, and so at this point in time, this board can do anything it wants to do about the entire interview process.
Right, I mean,
That's,
unless there's a state legislative rule that specifies that each one of those being followed, this is a policy, and we have the right to modify the policy and even waive a particular line of that policy as just a formality. Am I correct?
Well, I would point to the board the fact that line 14, there's some contradictory language here because line 9 says prior to conducting a search to fill the position, the board shall initially develop the following. And we've got a job description, a timeline, a process for accepting and reviewing, selection procedures. But then when you go to 14, the board may invite the community, including board employees, to participate in the process of selecting. You don't have a shall,
Right.
you have a may.
In line 2, if possible.
Correct.
and then number 2, it says, the interview process for each finalist shall include meetings with various staff community groups,
It has the word shall.
and it has the word
If
shall. Do we have to
possible.
do that?
But if
It says,
possible.
yeah, it says if possible right there at the very end, so.
Well, I think the intent is kind of clear. I think we want community inclusion, and it's just a question. I was involved in a job search at one point in which our counterpart would be the governor and the chancellor to education. We are the chancellors who ultimately decide what person will be selected in the director of schools position. But prior to that time, I was a member of a team of people that included administrators and school personnel who participated in asking questions. The questions were limited. We had a script that we were allowed to ask any of those questions because they had legal. I mean, the questions we asked, we do not want to violate the law in asking questions that are inappropriate. So we had a script, and all of those members who participated in that committee were around a round table interviewing and asking specific questions. And then, once those questions were answered, the committee voted on who their preferences were. And then that committee passed on its decision to the chancellor, would pass the decision on to us, where we then would continue the interview process and make a decision. Now, it sounds kind of convoluted and kind of lengthy, but it guaranteed community support, and it guaranteed support by inclusion of all of the stakeholders. Yes?
Could we not have a listening session, so something that would be on Zoom that community, everybody could kind of participate in, where we could invite the candidates that we choose to invite, we're talking about all the Tennessee licensed candidates, where it could be kind of like a round table which would satisfy that. And so people could ask, they could ask a question, they could get to know these people, and then at that point, I think what you're saying is that it would be up to the board to select, based on the feedback, the finalists.
Yeah, that would be the only thing that I would want to assure is that instead of having 1,000 people in a room, that we select representatives. We select various people who would represent the school system and perhaps members of the community. It doesn't have to be tons and tons of people. It's just that we can add them to this committee.
My problem with that is if we select people, that could be deemed discriminatory. If we open it up and you would like to participate, let us know, we can put you on this list, and then they could go ahead and submit the question, we could vet the question out, make sure that it's not inappropriate. I mean, the whole thing is to get to know the candidates, right? Just like when we're running for office and we have a get-to-know-you session, and people are talking and they're asking us questions, I mean, let's face facts, you don't have 1,000 people come out to one of those, you got maybe 15, 20.
Yeah, but, also, even in our community, the process where we allow a community member to speak, if there's 15 or 20 people that are going to say the same thing, what we do is we select a representative.
Right.
So in this case, what we could do is decide which groups we would like to select as part of the team. For instance, we could have 2 administrators from the central office. We could have a faculty president, faculty member representing TEA in the process, and then whatever else we decide as a group should be committed to in terms of representation. And that way it narrows the field down, and it gives us all the same, it keeps it from getting so far out of hand that we can't conduct our business. Yes, I'm sorry.
I just feel that our principals don't need a representative. They need to all be able to interview, whatever, get to know, because our principals you might have a 2-man committee or whatever, but they might not carry the thoughts of all of our principals. And our principals have to work directly, so does administration. And so I see where you're coming from and not having a lot of chaos. I feel like it needs to be a little more personable, because they're the ones that have to work with them so closely.
Okay, well,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think what we need to make a decision on right now is, are we going to do it like we did last time and the board take care of everything, the interviews, or are we going to come up with a committee? Now, that's, Earl?
Not so
Look
much
at number
a
3
question,
on this, guys.
but a comment,
You're
because-
getting ahead of yourselves.
Not so much of a question, but a comment. And I understand the board getting bogged down with some of this language here, but just an observation. I think the board could fulfill this policy by inviting the community, however you want to define that, if you want to send an invitation to principals, if you want to send an invitation to staff members to say, in the hour before this interview, we're going to have a meet and greet session with this potential candidate for director of schools, and they would have the opportunity to speak to all of you before you actually voted
Yeah.
as to the director of schools. I think that fulfills the spirit of this policy. It could be that simple. Obviously, you can do it more formally than that, but that's just an idea.
Mr. Inman,
Yes.
could we invite the general public? I mean, we're open meetings anyway. So whenever we get together, the public is invited, administrators are invited. So during the interviews, if we had the general public here like we did the last time, or they were invited, and then wait for a day or so to vote, we don't have to vote right then.
Absolutely.
Nor
Which is
do
what we
we,
did the last time. We waited and voted afterwards. That would give the general public, the administrators or whatever, plenty of time to contact their board members or whatever board members, and give any feedback
Right.
that they wanted to do. Yes,
but
sir.
does that preclude the board from with this meet and greet, an open meeting?
No.
Does that preclude us from actually interviewing the
No.
candidate?
No.
Okay.
No.
No, I think the policy anticipates that this board is going to formally interview everyone.
Yeah, number 3 states that candidates shall be interviewed by the board in an open session, and only board members will be allowed to ask questions.
Right.
Correct.
So,
So the meet and greet would be an open forum for everyone who's there to ask questions. We might have this area or the gym or some larger
Room back.
office area, right?
Room in the back, yeah.
Where the person sits down and then the community members representing there have questions to ask. They can do that. I like that idea.
Okay.
Stuff like that over Martin.
Yeah, we held it at Martin.
Okay, moving from that, since we've got that discussion out there, and I know a decision's not been made yet. Okay, on the interview process, they are gonna be interviewed one at a time, not in the same room.
yes.
Can we turn the mics off from the hallway to where they don't hear? Because, I mean, that is nerve wracking.
Can't do that, though.
Well, I don't know.
Open meeting, you can't do that.
Well, we
As far
could,
as the other candidates, they
I
could.
think we could probably get a specific area
Okay.
where they could be, where they could,
I just feel like that's a privacy
Ms.
issue.
Bray.
I don't,
They all came in my office last year and I closed the doors and you can't hear it.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, then
That's
that,
what I did. I brought them in when the people person that was waiting came to my office. We closed the door.
okay.
And
okay.
you
My
can't
question-
hear it once the door's closed.
My question is for Mr. Patton. Wouldn't that be a violation of sunshine law? If they want to hear it, they can hear it.
no.
Not the candidates.
Why not? They're still
No,
citizens.
Not the candidates.
Well,
still
they don't,
citizens.
they don't fall under the
They're
sunshine
still
law.
citizens.
Well, they don't fall under the sunshine law.
Stacy, I understand where you're coming from. I still don't think that that would be a violation of the sunshine law, because the idea there is fairness. You don't want a potential
I mean, I get that. I'm
candidate-
just saying, could it be?
I really don't think that that would be, I get it. It's a legitimate question, and it's a fair question, but no, I don't believe that would be a violation.
Most candidates would agree to it anyway because, they probably wouldn't want their interview to be heard by the other candidates either, so.
That's one of the
I think
reasons we have to
that's
ask the
fair.
same questions of each candidate.
Right.
Now, what we did last time, if I remember correctly, Ms. Boston, you correct me if I'm wrong. I think we all submitted questions to Mr. Patton, and I don't remember exactly how we whittled it down, but we whittled it down to about 12 or 14 questions. I've got the questions at home somewhere, but,
They would be in an email somewhere.
yeah.
Yeah, I can
but-
find it.
But
Thank you.
we can do that again. I mean, because I
Because
think
there's
that,
some questions that
Well-
I think need
well,
to be.
some of the questions, because we only had hometown people last time, and this time we're opening it up to other people, so there may be other questions that we need to ask. And some of the questions that we ask the hometown people may not be pertinent to somebody, from Murfreesboro or somewhere else.
And I like that each submitting, question that we want answered.
Now, that's what we did last time. I remember that. I remember we all
We did do
submitted
that.
questions.
And we each had we just kind of rotated and it was like I think each person had 3 or 4 questions that they wanted to ask and
And it seems,
we didn't get repetitive.
yeah, right. And then it seems to me like we were allowed to ask one question that kind of was not on the list.
We had a choice,
seems
a
like-
choice question, like a personal
Yeah.
question.
But we need to clear that with Mr. Patton first to make sure we're still sitting on legal ground.
The
Right.
agreement was if something came up and it sparked a question for an individual board member, I mean, you certainly can do anything you want to do. You can ask that question, and I think that's what we did.
Okay. Because I think I remember asking everybody a budget question that was not on the list. It was just a general question, and I asked that for everybody. Yes, Miss Timpson.
Well, the last time, public could not be here because we were in the middle of the pandemic.
That's right.
You had each person, because I remember I was at Tony Weir Garrett's house watching it on her TV. So, I mean, so that was the time before that, they just assigned times. They had interview times, and that person came in and sat right there at that table, and then you asked those questions. And then, as far as the other community goes is Mr. Andrews, when he got hired, so I've been here a minute. When Mr. Andrews was hired, he called each of those community groups in and spoke to the groups. Now, that was after he was already hired, so that wouldn't help you probably with your
If he's already hired, he's already hired.
Right. That wouldn't help you with interview, but.
I think the 30 to 45-minute meet and greet prior to an interview, or prior to meeting the candidates, I think that would fulfill
I
that.
like that, and didn't we do that one
Specific.
time too, at Martin, didn't we have like?
Yes, we
I think so.
That was before my time.
I have a question, and
Yes.
this may be a question for you. Do our principals, administrators, and everybody, do they have access to look at the resumes?
Absolutely. Yes, they're in the.
I was asked that question, so I wanted to make sure that that was a
Yes, ma'am.
possibility.
How do they
because-
have access?
They
I have a book.
Come to Ms. Bray's
All they
office.
have to do is ask. I have a book where there's copies of all. The policy says that the public can come and review
Oh.
the resumes here. And there's a book that I've kept in my office where I redact personal information. Anybody can come view it.
Okay, I'm saying that publicly where everybody can hear you. If you want to see the resumes for the director of school, come to Ms. Kim Bray's office.
Please.
I did not know that we had a book.
Well, I think
Okay.
that would help the public also, and our principals and administration, I mean, all of our staff especially, to be able to have a thought of what is going on. I think that, I mean, yes, they're our employee, but they're the ones that have the most contact direct, and they need to be a part of this process.
I agree with you.
Okay.
Mine is 15 and 16.
There's a
Okay,
reason.
so what I'm hearing is that you're looking at wanting to have them here like 45 minutes before their interview with us, Ms. Hamby?
I'm sorry.
But you're wanting them to come in about 45 minutes ahead of their interview and have them in a different room with the principals? Is that what you're saying? And the community?
Whoever wants to come and, yeah, the community, the staff, everybody can come and do a meet and greet with them on the day that we do the interview.
Okay.
About 45 minutes to an hour before the interview.
And then
And
they
they
come in here and then we do the interviews and then
Then we give the public an opportunity to reach out to us.
we'll take a couple of days before
Yeah.
we vote.
And,
Well, if we spread it out over, how many weeks, a 1 week period where we're interviewing 7 people who have,
Well, now,
I mean, it'll take
now-
more.
Yeah, now, like I said, my suggestion was to do 3 on Friday and 4 on Saturday, but we can spread it out and do it longer. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. That was just a suggestion.
My opinion, be that as it may, for those that work, those of you that do not work, this does not apply, because y'all don't care. But if you work by Friday night, you're brain dead. You're much fresher on Saturday morning. I don't mind giving up a couple of Saturdays, but by Friday night, I just want to go home and not talk to anybody.
Okay.
I work, I'd rather do Friday and a Saturday and get it over with than kill 2 of my Saturdays.
I come up fresher on Saturday mornings.
I'd rather do a couple of Saturdays myself.
Yeah, a couple of Saturdays sound good to me, too.
No. Hard pass.
Oh, herding cats.
Chair,
And that would also be easier for the meet and greets too, is doing
Mr.
it on
King.
Saturday.
Right, meet and greets in the
just had
morning.
a couple of questions. When you look at line 9, it's referenced with number 3, which is Tennessee Code 492203. Does that mean that by law we're required to follow this process? We can't change it at all?
I think that is correct, Mr. King.
Okay.
But I think what's proposed, at least currently, would be in compliance with that. I should take that back because I guess anything has formally been proposed, but I think what I'm hearing informally proposed maybe would seem to be in keeping with the law.
So, in that thought, and all the other comments we've had here, would it be prudent for us to back up and form a committee to get the timeline and the other things in order that we want, and propose it to the full board. I have the unfortunate position of having interviewed for this before. So I call it unfortunate because I really know what we really need for a director of schools. I know what goes on, what needs to go on, what needs to happen in the central office.
What, can you kind of define that?
When we start using questions, we need to make sure they're pertinent to what the job is actually. Now, I don't know what the questions are. Do we have them formed? Have they been approved?
No.
They follow this process?
I don't know that the questions have to be approved. As a board member, I think we each have the right to ask any question we so desire.
As long as we're consistent with all the candidates.
Right, and as
That's-
long as they don't violate any discrimination.
Well, that's the way it was done last time.
That's right.
It was all consistent, and it was all approved by Mr. Patton, or, you know, like Ms. Boston said, if we had a question that came up during the questioning, then we could ask it.
Absolutely.
Aren't we in the process now of developing the process? And the first one was the job descriptions we did, but the timeline, that's number 2 there, but we're developing the timeline now, but we've already accepted applications, which is fine, because we don't have to have a specific timeline as long as we're doing it now, so the process is being followed.
Ow.
I mean, Chris, are you saying that we should back up, ask for a new job, ask for more
No,
resumes?
I think we've got the job description. We just need to develop the timeline.
Okay,
What's going to happen when?
that's, okay, I understand.
That's what we're working on, right? Is the timeline?
Thank you for bringing that up.
So we've already got the resumes. We haven't got the applications yet, but we've got the resumes.
Do the applications not serve? Do the resumes not serve as the applications? Because they have a formal letter applying attached to the front.
That was my
I believe they-
understanding last time too.
I believe they did last time.
Yeah.
Yes.
The applications, that is with the,
And then,
The
well, and
resume.
then, and Ms. Bragg, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming that once we select one, that they will fill out a standard application that we always do.
Correct.
Okay.
And this is breaking away from the current stream of conversation here, but at what point do we do the background checks, and how many candidates do we do background checks on?
That would come from the application.
Well, I think last time, we didn't actually do a background check
Because they were internal,
because they were all employees of the Cumberland County school system at that time.
which
And
is,
anybody in Tennessee that's working in the school system will have a current background check. It's the law.
Now,
Oh, what I'm talking about, calling up
Oh,
references,
References.
and do we only say that the person that we have selected as the first primary candidate, we do a check on references then, or do we have the top 3 and then do references then to?
well, that was open up for discussion as well. I mean, I told you guys that this is all open for discussion for all of us, and we can do that. We can, if you want to interview all 7, and then whittle it down to 3, and re-interview those 3, and then do the background check or the reference checks on those 3. I mean, that's, like I said, that's up to you guys. I've left it open for discussion.
I love that idea.
I like that idea.
I want to interject here and make sure that, because I understand when you say all 7, you're referring to all 7 that have Tennessee qualifications currently.
Yes,
And
correct.
so another thing that the board needs to vote on is the fact that that's the direction that you're going. You're not going to interview anyone that doesn't currently have Tennessee qualifications. So don't
Thank
get
you,
your cart
Mr.
before the horse.
Well, I was,
Kind
yeah,
of friendly, advice here.
That was my question. When did we decide on 7?
we didn't. That was what this,
I'll
what
make a
this was
motion
for.
that we limit initial searches for the position of Director of Schools to only the 7 applicants who hold current valid Tennessee license.
I second.
Mr. Brock with the first and Ms. Cargy with the second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Got 8 yes and 1 nay. Okay. All right. Now, back to the process.
When you want to do this.
Well,
Mr. Chair?
yes, Ms. Cargy.
My thought is sooner the better. If I'm looking for a director of schools position, I'm probably out there right now with all my resumes trying to get everything lined up. And as we saw, several people had already backed out. We don't know why, but my thinking is that time is a ticking, and the longer that we go, the smaller that pool may become.
That becomes a process of natural selection.
Is that
I say the first
Darwinism.
interview should be set up maybe a week from Saturday. That gives them time to prepare themselves.
That'd be the 12th. Do you want to do it that soon, or?
Yes.
I cannot be here this Saturday or the 14th, but other than that,
could see
I'm
that.
good.
I'm good the 12th.
Thank you. What's the date?
Okay,
Saturday.
we need to decide whether we're going to do it on 2 Saturdays or we're going to do it on a Friday and a Saturday.
Friday.
I think we should have it 3 Saturdays.
3?
2 and 3.
Oh, no.
3 Saturdays?
I know, this is,
Mr. Chair,
Ever
Saturday,
that's not fun.
that's not fun. I'm just thinking.
Last time, I believe there was like
Giving 2
14.
people-
There's either 12 or 14.
that will determine how much time we have each Saturday.
That's
Right.
true.
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Ms. Carter?
I appreciate where y'all are coming from, but I just have to throw this out here. I cannot do 3 Saturdays. I'm a doctoral student. I can't. I have too many papers to write. I can give you 1 Saturday. I can't give you 2. I'm sorry. I can't.
Could we do the 11th, which is a Friday, and the 12th?
That's too soon.
Too soon?
That's too soon.
Do the 18th and 19th.
Well,
Someone wants to help me write a paper.
well, we can either look at like the 18th and 19th, or we do it after spring break.
I can't do the 18th and 19th, so.
Can't do the 18th.
Okay, 18th and 19th is out.
I'm gone the 1st and the 2nd.
The 1st and 2nd, what?
Can we do the 25th and
1st, 2nd, 8,
26th?
and 9.
I'm probably not
Wow.
going to be available on Friday. I'm just not going to do it.
So that gives us the 11th and 12th.
Then let's do a marathon on Saturday and get it in.
Amen.
I mean,
Do all
guys,
7 of
look,
them.
if everybody can pick a Saturday, because if we start looking at all of our commitments and everything, we're going to run into some problems. I
Let's do
don't
7
want to do a
interviews on a
marathon. I don't
Saturday.
want to do it, but sometimes you got to.
I'm good with the 12th. I'll do a marathon.
All right, then, does anybody want to make a motion that we do it on the 12th?
I move that we have all
Of March?
of the,
12th of March.
move that we have all of the interviews on March 12th.
That's awfully soon.
Well,
It'll never work.
Why? You want the job, you're gonna be here.
Seven
We do have to get the
people.
questions prepared.
We can get that done this week.
7 people.
We can do it, but that'll be
interview,
quick.
And we have 7 1-hour to an hour and a half sessions with the public for each person. It's not gonna fit in.
Why do they have to be each? Why can't they just before their,
No, I don't
Elected.
think.
Okay, I have a
think you
que-
have to have one person and let the community talk to that individual, and then another person I don't
Does the
think-
board wouldn't have anything to do with this meet and greet portion.
I'm saying.
I mean, whether it's done before or after the interview process is going on, I mean, let that happen. Personally, if I was being interviewed for the position, I would hate to do a meet and greet and then go in for an interview. I'd rather, I mean, if I was gonna do it, I'd rather do it afterward. But that ought to be totally optional anyway to the candidates. If they wanna go in and be a part of this meet and greet, great. If they don't, then so be it.
I agree.
Ms. Hamby?
Would it be possible to do 3 interviews on the 12th and do the other 4 2 weeks later? Because everybody's like, we can't do the 18th and 19th.
I
But
just
that
think
gives
it-
us some time too.
Evening.
I think by the time you submit questions.
The 19th, I mean, not the 19th, the 26th.
This
We're
is
not gonna
great.
get it done.
Well, then,
And we're
I don't
also
know.
not going to be able to get back together to approve those questions once they've been submitted and Earl said, you know, look, these are the questions y'all have submitted. We can't do that by the 12th.
Well, we just emailed them to you
Okay.
last time.
We could start with the approved questions from last time we did this. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know that was a different time.
But same
Things
old.
change.
It's a different time and we have different questions.
Well, I started to say, we could use that as a baseline and then let everybody still submit questions to you.
Okay.
And then we can decide on which ones we want to use, which ones we don't want to use. Or we can, oh God, I hate to say this. We could develop a committee to do that.
okay, refresh my mind when spring break is.
Spring break is the 21st through the 25th.
Right.
So,
Okay, so, can we just put the interviews off until April 2nd? The first Saturday in
I will
April?
be out the 2nd.
now we could,
Well, I don't think none of us can all come together on a Saturday, I'll just tell you, because there's too many things going on,
What about
so.
the 26th?
That's, spring break ends the 25th, so the 26th, that's what I suggested.
Are we
but-
involved in spring break?
But some of the candidates might already have.
well,
plans, so.
some of the candidates may not
Have spring break that
have
week.
spring break that week. They're coming from different systems, so.
And we can put it out there and ask them if they're available that day to interview.
Well, if I was looking for a job,
Be there.
I'd be there.
I'd be there.
So are we looking at doing it all on one day? Is that the consensus of everybody? Doing all 7 of them?
I'll amend my motion. I'll amend my motion to have all interviews on the 26th.
What happened to the 12th?
It's too soon.
Everybody they think it's too soon.
It's a little too soon, and I agree, it is, because I mean, that's coming up pretty quick.
All right. I've got a motion on the floor that we conduct 7 interviews for only the people who are Tennessee qualified on March 26th. That's the motion on the floor.
Starting
Now,
at what time?
Well, hang on a minute, we'll get to that. Mr. Patton, does that cover us for, like I said, for just the people that are Tennessee qualified?
I think the board's already voted that that's who you're going to interview, so I
Yeah.
think you're okay there.
Okay.
I think all you have to do is decide.
Okay,
Sure.
all right. So we got a motion on the floor. Is there a second
For the 26th,
for the 26th?
I'll second.
Okay. Got a motion by Ms. Cargy and a second by Ms. Hamby. This is for doing all 7 interviews on the 26th of March. Is there any discussion?
I have been through 5 interviews before. Never have we ever
Done
interviewed 7 people in one day. That's all.
That's gonna be 7
Never.
hours of nothing but interviews. If
Your
we
mind
just
would be
give them an
dead.
hour.
You can't interview.
We
I
can,
have to agree with that.
Well,
All
hang on.
7 would
Okay.
be dead. Everybody's got the same questions.
Okay.
You have to talk to these people.
All right, anybody want any discussion on this?
Can I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
That is a lot of interviews all in one day. Could we,
Well, we've got a motion and a second on the floor. We got to vote on this
I amend
first.
my second?
You may.
You can't.
You can amend it,
You can revoke it.
or actually, yeah, you can revoke it.
Yeah, revoke
You
it's what
can-
I meant.
you
Revoke
can.
my second.
You gonna second it?
You're going to revoke it, and then I've got Miss Shirley with a second. She's going to replace your second.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
While we're in discussion,
Well, Miss Timpson, you had your hand up.
Is there any way we can not do it that week when teachers are all out on spring break and that is their vacation?
That's what I said, but
Like to be here for.
you know what?
It's gonna be in the middle of
I'm gonna
April.
remove my motion. I'm gonna
Okay.
rescind my motion. At this point, I don't need to be here on the 2nd. I'll give my question. We can do it April 2nd. I don't care. The questions are the questions. It doesn't matter if I'm physically here. I can be watching in. All I care about is the answer to the question. It's not going to be the vote. I'm fine with the second. I remove my motion.
Okay, so the motion has been removed from the table. So that motion has died. So do I hear any other suggestions or any other motions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. King.
we could reduce it to the 2 local candidates first. Solve a lot of it.
We tried to do that. Same with the Friday and the Saturday.
Are you saying that you want to just,
I have to ask what message we send our people when we don't consider them above
Well-
other people.
well, they're being considered. The only reason we did it with local candidates last time was because we had 4. But this time there's only 2, and that limits us, it's a pretty small limitation. And I just felt like that we could open it up to the Tennessee candidates, and we could, at least get a good idea of who we want to get in here. And the two.
that's already been paid.
Well, and the 2 that I was mainly concerned about, I'll be honest, was the 2 that were actually from Cumberland County that actually just live in another city at this particular point in time. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, that was a concern of mine.
But in order to open it up to them, we have to
We gotta
open it up to all Tennessee
We got to open it up to all the Tennessee candidates.
Right.
And we have already voted to open it up to all Tennessee candidates. So we'd have to have another motion to defeat that one.
No, I can't make it because I voted nay.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I'm like Mr. Safety. I'm not real thrilled about doing 7 in one day.
I'm with you.
I'm not either, but everybody was having, I can't do it,
know.
I can't do it, I can't do it. So it's like,
I know.
Could we further limit it to people that only have central office experience?
No, I wouldn't want to do that.
Well,
you're getting into discrimination there.
well, we've already got a motion and we've already.
Actually, that's not discrimination, that's selection.
Well, but we've already voted to include all 7 candidates with Tennessee license. We've already done that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that we interview the 2 local candidates on Friday, April 1st, and the remaining Tennessee candidates on Saturday, April 2nd.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion by Ms. Corrigan, second by Mr. Brock. All right, any discussion?
I will not be here on the 2nd, but I will watch him.
Julia, is that the week after?
Yes, that's the week after spring break.
Thank you.
Thank you.
April the
Save me
1st.
from checking my calendar.
April 1st.
April 1st, we would do the,
That's fine, I can still look it on review.
we would do the 2 local candidates on Friday, and then do 5. Well, my suggestion was to do 3 on Friday, and then 4 on Saturday. That way,
There's no clean way.
This
about
was a
that
compromise.
Unless you open it up to all
That's-
5 to
If we start the-
volunteer and
that's
then
true.
you
But,
wanna
well,
be in
the
charge of
motion,
that scheduling.
the motion on the floor is for 2 on Friday, the 1st, and 5 on Saturday. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
by doing it that way, to me, that was a compromise for those who feel that Friday is a little bit tedious, kind of splitting the difference. And also wanted to make the comment, as Ms. Tabitha explained, that this will not be live, but I can still go ahead and watch the proceedings because the questions are still the same. So I'm okay with that prior to the vote.
Okay.
I have something to say.
Yes, Ms.
You're saying that you want the 2 applicants that are from central office on Friday, would they work all day Friday and then come to an interview? Is that fair to them?
If they want the job, they'll be here.
Somebody else might be traveling and need on Saturday for 3 hours to get here.
This is true.
So,
Just asking.
all right, any further discussion?
Read the motion again, please.
Motion is that we do the local candidates, the 2 local candidates on Friday, April the 1st.
Starting when?
We've not, well, we haven't talked about that.
Could we talk about that?
Yes, we can talk about that.
You have a suggestion on time because I
for
might
the
be willing to
question.
amend my motion. Was I the one that made that?
Yes,
No, you
you
did
seconded the motion.
I
Okay.
seconded it.
All right, hang on, everybody. Hang on. Ms. Boston, you had a question or an idea.
I'm just curious on what time we're looking at.
That's not part of the motion, point of order.
Part of the discussion.
I mean,
What
if
a
there's not
convenient time would be,
that may
Ms.
affect
Boston,
how I
to
vote.
start these interviews on that Friday, should we approve this motion?
I,
Anybody have any
She
other-
called point of order. I mean,
Yeah, she called
Go
point of
ahead
order, so.
and
Go
Mr. Safety,
I am,
ahead and vote on that, and then we'll decide a time.
hang on, Mr. Safety.
I am a firm believer in public input in an organized way, and I do not see how having 2 interviews on Friday with a meet and greet sometime on Friday when people are either working or inaccessible, and then having a meet and greet. Do you envision 3 or 4 of the candidates sitting in front of 15 or 20 people and answering questions? How invasive is that? How threatening is that to an individual who's applying for the job and being in a same room with 2 or 3 candidates and then having them openly be interviewed by people in the room? There's just no sense of privacy in it or personal respect.
That goes back to my idea of having an internet roundtable.
I think we need to take
Okay.
these job interviews and we need to plan how the community can be present in an organized way and ask and field questions where the person who's being interviewed isn't feeling uncomfortable by being in the same room with other people. It may be, maybe you're right, but I think that's an important point.
That's the point I was trying to make earlier. Let the public and the principals, administration, whatever, be in here during the interview. Let them have a few minutes to talk to that person before we start our interview process.
Ms. Shirley?
I said that earlier.
Ms. Shirley?
Then it's individual.
I'm with you.
If I can.
Yeah, Mr. Patton.
Ms. Boston, you and I previously discussed what the deadline date would be for the board to hire a director of schools. Do you recall what that
State
date was?
legislature.
I do. We can't do anything after June 15th. After June 15th
After
to
June 15th.
September,
Yeah, 45 days before the election.
right, and then 30 days afterwards.
Correct.
So we need to, this board needs to act before June 15th.
Yes.
Yes.
Which, this is
I'm not
March the
guessing.
3rd. We've got plenty of time.
Right.
It does not have to be done tomorrow.
I guess that's all I want to point out to this board. It seems like you're trying to get things crammed in, and I get it. The board needs to act, without a doubt. But
I don't feel like we need to cram that many into one day myself.
Well, this is an unbelievably important and complex job. And I know you all know that. I would just encourage the board to take your time as you can and make a calm and rational decision.
Thank you, Mr. Patton.
Yes, sir.
I'm hearing that we still have questions and quandaries about the process. Once again, I was just trying to do it like we did last time, and but if this board wants to do it in a different way, and if we want to hold off and wait, that's fine.
Well, Mr.
I'm not in any rush. Like I said, I was just opening it up for everybody's discussion. Now, Ms. Boston.
Last time we couldn't have more than 10 people in a room. We were in the middle of a pandemic. That's a little bit different.
Sure.
Guidelines, restrictions than what we're dealing with now. So, I mean, the options are a little bit more open than they were the last time we interviewed.
That's true. All right.
Since we're still in discussion,
yes.
would it please the board to invite all of the 7 Tennessee certified candidates to a community meet and greet on a Saturday prior to the 1st and the 2nd?
That's right.
That way you
Yes. Do that
satisfy
tomorrow.
everything.
We
Anybody
did
who
that
wants to
all.
can come there. They get up, they say their spiel, here I am. You get 15 minutes. Hi, how are ya? Bomb, it's done.
And all of y'all don't have to be there.
And we don't even
And-
have to be there.
And I agree with that, and if they want to talk with the candidates individually, they can take them to the side to where they're not having to
Mr. Chair?
answer.
I don't have a problem with that, but the only ones that I'm concerned about would be the ones that live a long ways away. But with that being said, once again, if they want the job, they'll be here.
It's an invitation.
Yes.
So I'm going to amend my motion to now state that my motion is that we interview the 2 local candidates on Friday, April 1st, at a time to be determined by another vote. The remaining 5 on Saturday the 2nd, with all Tennessee candidates invited to a meet and greet to be held on Saturday the 19th.
Oh, wait a minute. That's 2 weeks before.
That's fine. It
Okay.
doesn't matter. That's a meet and greet where they can come out and they can talk to people.
You don't want to do it the 26th.
No, because that's their spring break and I'm
Okay.
trying to be fair to everybody.
Okay, the 19th. Okay. All right. Mr. Brock?
Ms. Shirley, you willing to amend your second to mine?
Well, no, we've got Mr. Brock with the second on this one.
No, it's too confusing.
You're not going to amend your second. Okay, so now we're back to,
But that's not going to keep from, the intent is still the same. You're still doing 2 and 5. So let's get that, let's get something settled before we start talking about having crumpets and tea. I'm
okay.
sorry.
All right, so we've got a motion
Let's
on
get
the,
business out of
we
the
have a
way.
motion on the floor to interview the local candidates on April the 1st, and then the other 5 candidates on April the 2nd. All right? I think we've discussed it today.
Why just the local?
They're quick and easy. They're local.
They're already here.
They're already here. We don't have to worry about them
That way
traveling.
we're not here until midnight on Friday night,
Okay.
I guess. I don't.
Does everybody understand the motion?
So are we going back to my original
We're going
motion?
to
Then I
do-
amend it to go back to my original motion.
Okay, well, we didn't have he wouldn't amend his second, so it didn't matter. Okay, so once again, local candidates on April the 1st, the 2 local candidates, and then the other 5 on Saturday, the 2nd. All in favor, say aye.
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 No.
All opposed?
No.
We'll do a roll call. We'll do roll call because I can't tell. Mr. Safety?
No.
Ms. Paris?
Pass for now.
Okay. Ms. Hale?
No.
Okay. Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Nay.
Ms. Hamby?
No.
Ms. Boston?
No.
Ms. Corgi?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. So motion fails.
Shirley's still can, she's got to pass.
It's okay, I don't care.
Yes. Yeah, motion. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Shirley, I got to come back to you. Do you want to vote?
I'll do, well,
Well, you can
now
change
I even forgot how everybody voted.
it. Well, you can change it now, or you can just leave it as a pass,
I
either
think
way.
I'll just leave it. Everybody's so confused. This is confusing.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Shirley. All right, so that motion fails. All right. Then I'm going to make a motion that we establish a committee to come up with the parameters of the search and come up with the dates and then bring it back to the board.
Second.
Now, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
No.
All right, we'll do a roll call. Mr. Safety? Ms. Paris? Ms. Hale?
No.
Mr. Brock?
No.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Hamby?
No.
Ms. Boston?
No.
Ms. Corrigan?
No.
And chair votes yes, so that one fails. So we're right back to where we started.
I think we need to take a bathroom break and breathe and get all this junk out of our head because it has been a jumbled mess.
Ms. Hale, I apologize because I thought this was going to be a quick meeting and you was going to get to your bowling. I'm sorry.
It's fine. You're fine.
But, okay, we'll adjourn. We'll come back at 6 o'clock or
Yeah, just
a couple minutes
for a
after
couple minutes
6.
to get
Yeah,
some of
just
this stuff out of
go
our
to the
head.
restroom real quick and we'll come right back.
Gosh, it's
I believe we've got everybody back. So I will go ahead and call us back into session.
You were wrong with this. We have. What did they do to it?
Chair got stuck.
Just leave it be. I'll get it. I'll hold on and sit down.
Question,
Okay,
Chair.
Mr. Brock.
Is it absolutely necessary that the current director is retiring? I mean, is there something?
Tried to tell her that I rejected for.
I withdraw the question.
All right.
Okay. Now, we're back to square one with how are we going to proceed with our interview process.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Safety.
we have discussed having meetings on interviewing everyone on one day, everyone on 2 days. What I'd like to just do is make a motion without regard to time, that we interview a 3-day period of time.
Okay.
We use a 3-day period of time for our interviews. That's my motion.
Okay. Got a motion by Mr. Safety,
I'll second.
a second by Ms. Boston. All right. Discussion.
I'd have to know the 3 days before I feel comfortable on
We can
voting for this. I mean,
we
it
can
sounds,
determine
it
those
sounds
3
great, but I would need specifics.
Well, that's the reason why that would be a separate motion, so we can discuss the 3-day period.
So he's leaving it open so that we can come back and make a motion for the 3 days. So you would be able to make a motion on which 3 days you would like.
I personally, Mr. Chair, I
Yeah.
don't see the reasoning for 3 days. 2 days I can see.
I know Mr. Safety is trying to spread it out over a little bit longer period of time so we don't have to rush.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. King.
we're discussing without a second.
No, she
We
seconded.
got a second. Yep. Yeah, Ms. Boston seconded it. I'm sorry.
My problem too, though, is that, with that, is that if you're the first to interview, then every other candidate who is going to be interviewed in succeeding weeks has a lot of time to prep. I mean, and I know they may know the questions beforehand, but that, especially not knowing how long these 3 days are going to be separated, I just have a real issue with that.
3 in a row.
I concur with Mr. Brock.
If I knew the 3 rows.
Okay, all right, so we've got a motion on the floor to interview in just 3 days. He did not say consecutive days, he just said 3 days. And we have a second with Ms. Boston. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Inman,
Yes, Ms. Boston.
Robbie, would you be willing to amend your motion to 2 days and do 3 and 4 if they are a Saturdays?
You know, Mr. Safety, if you want.
I am thinking about that.
Well, I started to say, if you still want to go with your original
Sure, that's
motion, we
his
can
choice.
vote on that, and then we can come back to, if it fails, then we can come back to it. Either way, it doesn't matter, it's whatever you want to do,
I would like to stick with 3 days.
okay?
I stick with my second.
They could be
You gonna stay with your second?
I'll stay with
Saturdays,
my
they could
second.
be Friday, Saturday, and then a
Okay.
week later. I don't believe that giving a person a week or 2 weeks in between will serve any advantage for these people. I do not believe that. I have not seen that happen before. So
Okay.
that's the reason why I'm,
So the motion is to use 3 days to interview, not specific. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Nay.
All right, we'll do roll call. Safety?
Yes.
Ms. Paris? No. Ms. Hale?
No.
Mr. Brock?
No.
Mr. King?
Nay.
Ms. Hamby?
Yes.
Ms. Boston?
Yes.
Ms. Cargy?
No.
And the chair votes yes. And that motion fails. 5-4. So now we're back to square one again. I'm open for motions.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that we invite all 7 candidates to an open discussion forum on March 19th. The community can get to know them before we start anything else.
And that, is that the end of your motion?
End of my motion.
Okay, just the 19th. Do I hear a second? Okay, motion dies for the lack of a second.
Try.
I know, we're gonna try everything till we get something. Do I hear any other?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
here's the problem I'm having right now. I'm hearing 2 different things. I'm hearing we want to have time for the community to get to know the candidates, and I'm hearing we want to be able to interview all the candidates. I don't think a good plan is to have a meet and greet prior to an interview. I don't think that that's very conducive. I would like to invite whomever chooses to be there at one particular time as a roundtable discussion. Each of them can go up, they can say who they are, they can ask questions, just like candidates who are running for office get to do. I think that's important, and I think it satisfies the statute. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Patton. Okay. Then you can go ahead, once you have that, you can set another time to be determined to interview. But that way you've got some community feedback and you've satisfied it. So the question becomes, when do you do that? Do you do it on a day that's conducive? If these people are working in the schools, which we know that they are, weekdays are going to be tight. If they're coming from all over the state, time is going to be crunchy to do it during a weekday, which puts us to a Saturday. Because I really don't think a Sunday is a valid day to do something like that. So look at your all's calendar and come up with a day.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion that we set the interviews for we'll do it on 3 days, the 29th, 30th, and 31st of March. And we can divide it up, 2 on each night or each day, and then 3 on the third day, on the 31st.
Those are weekdays, though, are they not?
Yes, they are. The 29th, 30th, and 31st.
Didn't we just vote down 3 days, though?
We voted down 3 days that were not specific.
Gotcha.
Yeah, these are specific.
You know what,
And if, like I said, if a candidate wants the job, they'll be here.
second your motion.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second for the 29th, 30th, and 31st. And we would do two on 2 nights and 3 on 1 night. We can divide that up, figure it out any way you want to.
Was part of the motion, Mr. Inman, nights? I mean,
We can do it whenever the board wants to. We can set the dates or set the times, because I know Miss Boston and Miss Cargy can't get here until at least 4:30, 4:35, 4:45, something like that.
Mr. Chair, don't make that, it's not a consideration for me. I can always watch the interview process. The
Okay.
questions are the same.
Okay. So the motion, get my phone back on. The motion is to hold interviews on the 29th, 30th, and 31st. I made the motion, Ms. Cargy made the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
We'll do roll call. Mr. Safety,
No.
Ms. Paris, Ms. Hale, Mr. Brock,
No.
Mr. King,
Nay.
Ms. Hamby,
Pass.
Ms. Boston,
No.
Ms. Cargy,
Yes.
chair votes yes. Motion fails. Ms. Hamby, do you want to change your pass?
No.
Okay. So motion fails.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes, Mr. Brock.
There is a community, Upper Coleman Federal Credit Union is holding its annual meeting on the 29th.
Oh.
So that
Oh.
would be a clash with something that's been in existence for decades.
Okay.
All right.
I did not know that. I didn't have that in my calendar.
I was checking my reminders.
So what,
Mr. Safety.
so I don't oppose at all the three days for the interview. But what I don't understand is what is the matter with taking 3 consecutive Saturdays? That would allow the public, we could divide the days up into the first 4 hours of the day for the public to have interviews, and then at 1 o'clock, we could interview one candidate for an hour, a second candidate for another hour, and a third candidate. The next week, we would do 2, and the next week after that, 2 on those Saturdays, or Saturdays that are somehow agreeable to everyone. I don't understand what is wrong with that idea.
Like I said, I can't commit to 3 Saturdays. I just can't. But I don't have to be here.
And I hate to do that to you.
It's
I really
okay.
do,
It's
because y'all
okay.
have been
I
so
can watch
kind to me, making exceptions for me during the retreat. You've done that. You've made exceptions for me. I realize that, and I don't want you to miss it. But the idea
okay.
of
I
cramming everybody into one interview and cramming everybody into a room to interview the candidates, and I agree with you. It's like a political process. But on the other hand, it's very different from a political process. I mean, these people are applying for a job that pays $100,000 or more a year. We have constituents that need input, and we have people from our faculty and our administration that need to be in these rooms to feel like they're not being rushed to interview people. And I just feel strongly that we're being unfair to the candidates by either cramming 3 or 4 in one day and then asking them to participate in a public meeting on that day. So, I
Mr.
mean,
Chair?
you know how I feel.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Safety. Ms. Carkey.
I think we are maybe getting the cart before the horse. If we want to have community input, let's decide that first. Let's do it as a meet and greet where they can come together. Whoever wants to, we can invite them. It's a specific time from then to then. It's an open house. It's a forum. It doesn't have to be that bogged down. But that way we have time to get feedback, and then we can come back afterwards and we can set a date for the interview process. You see what I'm saying? We can have that time to have the input.
I don't disagree. I mean, but do we want them to come on 2 separate occasions?
I would invite them on 2 separate occasions. Yes, I think you have to.
Would you agree that anybody who travels greater than 30 miles or 45 miles, that we reimburse them for travel expenses?
No, I think if you want the job, you go to it. If I'm interviewing for a job out of town, I go out of town.
But would you object if we said that they could be reimbursed at whatever the federal rate is?
Yes, I would object. I would absolutely object.
I think that would also-
Hang on, guys. Hang on. Ms. Boston, you had a question.
Well, actually, I have a statement.
Okay, got a statement.
There's not a motion on the floor or anything, right?
There's no motion on the floor.
This is just discussion.
Yes.
This meet and greet, instead of making it a meet and greet. When I brought this up, I kind of envisioned that each board member would submit a name. We would have a couple of principals, a couple administrators, someone from the TEA, and then possibly 3 members from the general public.
And a county commissioner?
It could be a county commissioner, okay? To meet with the candidates or the applicants. Let's say 30 minutes prior to when we get them. They would score them, they would ask them questions. They would score them on presentation, content, knowledge, whatever they wanted to score them on. Those score sheets would be anonymous. Those score sheets would come back to the board, to board members. We could put that with the application before we voted. We don't necessarily have to have those before we interview them. But before we make a vote,
Yes.
we would have these sheets to consider the input of individuals who have a vested interest in who we choose. I didn't envision you got to bake cookies and make a cheese tray. I don't want any applicant being put on the spot, being asked a pointed question, well, what are you going to do about so-and-so? And that would be just, this would be a smaller version interview of what the board would do. The only difference is the board's decision is final. They don't get to vote. This is what I envisioned. I didn't envision this, hoopla.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Cargy?
Here's my problem with that, is it sounds good in theory, but what makes who we choose to be in this committee or preview or whatever you want to call it, so we choose 3 people from the community. Well, I'm in the community and I didn't get picked when my kids are in the school, so why is my opinion not as valid as somebody else's? Why does somebody else get to score and I don't? I don't think you can do that. I think if you're going to have a true forum that involves the community needs to be invited. I think that's important. I mean, who's to say that this principal doesn't have a bias towards this candidate, or this community member doesn't have to me, if you're talking about scoring, then you're going to get into a whole different level of bias, and I don't think it's fair. I think if it's going to be a true representation of the community, you've got to make it where anybody who wishes to come can come. Have them sign up ahead of time. That's fine, if you want, but I just think you can't do that.
Okay.
I think it's a bad
Hang
precedent.
on, hang on just a second, Mr. Safety. Miss Hamby.
I'm just going to throw this out here.
Okay.
We've thrown everything else.
Yep.
Okay.
Nothing sticked yet.
This is just my thoughts. Why not wait until the board, gets down to maybe the 4 finalists, and then do like the forum type
I'll tell you what.
thing instead of all 7? But that's just a thought out there, because we do have the final say. And yes, I want community input. Of course, I want all the staff input. I do. But why? That's just a thought. Wait until we've got down to, I don't care, 3, 4 finalists, and then
Mr. Safety.
that's just a thought.
Well, both Ms. Hamby and Mrs. Boston have great ideas, as well as Mrs. Cargy. How we implement that is where we're at right now. First, I agree that the general public should be available at these meetings. And second of all, I believe that Mrs. Boston has a way of structuring specific people to be there, or at least invited there, to be able to ask questions. We might even consider having a list of questions that are legally viable, so it's not just a free-for-all where they specifically say, well, what are you going to do about so-and-so, you know? And then, how do we get to those final four? Because we have 7 candidates right now. So what is the process that would allow us to eliminate 3 of those 7 candidates?
The only process I can think of is we would have to vote, and the top 3 or top 4 would move on. That's the only thing
From
I can.
from
that's the-
resumes, you know,
From
I mean.
resumes,
it's-
so why don't?
Oh, well, I know, hang on.
Yeah.
I gotta, now you're saying we just look at resumes, no interview?
No, I'm sorry, no.
Okay.
But looking over the resumes, do the interviews, and they'll have to come
Okay.
back for a second interview process when we weed
Yeah.
them down. I mean,
Okay.
that happens with most places.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Brock.
I don't want to speak for Knox County, but they just recently selected a new director, and they did narrow it down to actually 3, but then 1 dropped out, and 2, they had 2 candidates. And those 2, they walked around the community. They went into all or at least selected schools and introduced the finalists for that position to as wide a community as they could. So we could possibly incorporate everybody's wishes somewhat with a narrowing of the candidates.
And Fentress
And then-
County did
and then-
just about the same thing.
And
also.
then, take a few days, take a period of time to introduce them to the community. They can meet the county executive, other people they're going to be working with, see the schools, because, we may have a candidate who's never seen North School and would like to walk around and meet the teachers, the principals, the central office staff. We may have one of our top candidates decide, hey, this is not for me.
That's right. And I'm fine with that. The thing that was hanging me up was the scoring. I just think when you get into scoring by select people, that's undemocratic.
You have a problem with throwing a wide open forum to the community. Who's going to host it?
Right.
Who's going to conduct it? Is it going to be an MC? Is it just we're going to throw these we're going to throw these candidates out there and
Karaoke
to the lions? I'm sorry.
I agree.
This would require, that idea is wonderful and I'm all for it, but guys, that's going to require more planning than this board's been able to come up with and trying to decide a day to do some interviews. So,
I like your idea, Tom. I just don't like the scoring. That's
Okay.
where I'm having-
Okay, let's clarify the scoring. You don't give them a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You write your opinion, you write your thoughts,
They would just give feedback.
feedback.
Okay.
So if I use the word scoring and that's holding Ms. Cargie up, let me apologize, because we don't want to do that.
It's just
It's
the
just,
select
you wouldn't
people.
score, you would give feedback.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you have to consider that our job is to be the deciders. Okay?
That's right.
Ultimately, it's our responsibility to select the director of schools. But that doesn't preclude getting feedback from major constituents.
That is correct.
Now,
Jesus Christ.
narrowing down from 7 to perhaps,
Okay, I would have.
yeah, 7. Are we suggesting that we go ahead and conduct 7 interviews as the first level of interviews?
Yep.
And then in a public, in a special called meeting, we vote which of the 7 would be our top candidates. In the meantime, those interviews that we have are open to the public, but they cannot provide feedback. Then we select the top 4. Of course, all candidates are great, all candidates are good. But we select the top 4, and then we arrange with 2 Saturdays. And then on those Saturdays, we do something like Mrs. Boston suggested. We invite public, but we also we make sure that representatives of the community are selected. We can choose who those people get special invitations, but it's going to be open. Okay? And those special people can provide us with feedback as well as the open community, but we've provided some structure. Okay? There's some structure there. Because you just don't want, like Mr. Brock has said, we just don't want it to be an open, crazy forum. A free-for-all. That's better, right? We don't want it to be a free-for-all. So then we only have to select 2 Saturdays. We have 7 interviews over a 2-day period of time. Call out what we consider the best candidates, and then we decide at that point when the other 2 Saturdays will be available, or Friday nights, or whenever, to hold the other interviews.
Okay, I'd like to say something. I like that idea, Mr. Safety, but I would prefer to cut it down to 3 candidates, and then we would only have to do 1 Saturday.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that, making the top 3.
So,
Ms. Hamby, you had your hand up.
I don't remember now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No,
Ms.
it's okay.
Ms. Hale?
so by doing what Mr. Safety suggests, we're doing 7 interviews, all in a day.
No, we've not got that far yet. We've not got that far yet. We would do all 7 interviews. Then what we would do is we would vote, and we would narrow it down to the top 3, and then select a Saturday to do like Mr. Safety said, have the community come in, and they can talk with them, ask questions. We can structure it however this board wants to. And then
Get feedback?
then we get feedback, and then we get a little while, and then we would set another meeting, and we would vote to come up with the top candidate. Is that summing up everything that you said, basically, Mr. Safety? Except I just changed it to three candidates instead of 4.
I'm just trying to work through the mechanism. Mr. Brock, you want to contribute? I mean, I can see from your expression that there's...
It still sounds like the hoopla.
I'm sorry, guys.
It does.
You're still doing the meet and
This
greet
board
thing. That's not
was
what.
hang on,
elected
hang
by
on.
the people to come up with absolutely the best school system we can. And I don't see a problem in coming up with a method to reduce the number of candidates that we're going to seriously court, because it may come down to that, to 3. At that point, we could, I think the central office staff, I think certainly the director, but others, to introduce them to the community. There might be some organized meetings just to get around. But first we have to reduce it down to that. Okay, here is an idea.
Well, now, Mr. Brock, before you go any further, that was where I was headed. I'm not talking about when I say meet and greet. I'm just generically, okay? We can do it any way the board wants to. I wasn't saying open it up like we was talking about before. I'm just saying we can do whatever the board decides to do.
But it's, whatever form that takes, it needs to be manageable.
I agree.
It needs to, there must be some organization to it. Here's an idea I'd like for you to just think about. We would have to do this in a meeting, and we come in here prepared to have a ranking of our top 3 candidates. The top 3 people that we absolutely would like to get to know better. And we compile the numbers. We can do that publicly. And just, I'd say, these are the top 3. We score them, and we come up with 3 candidates then, and that becomes manageable.
Now, are you suggesting that we do that after an interview?
No,
You're talking
I'm
about
saying no.
Just using resumes?
Using resumes. I think I would like a fuller look at what was turned in. As I understand, some people included letters of reference and whatever. I would like an absolute, if they turned it in, I want to see it.
I would agree.
Because, hey, they're the ones who turned in the application and turned in their interest in the position. We could rank, and we say, my top candidate is this one, my second choice is this, my third choice is this, which my top 1, 2, 3 might be different than yours. Your ranking might be different. We score them. If you get a first place vote, you get 3 points. I don't know. Second place vote is 2. Third place vote is 1. At least we narrow it down that way, because this is getting out of hand, guys. I mean, we can interview 3 people in one day.
Yes.
Once we know that these are our top 3 candidates, and then everybody has had a voice in it. And yes, it is a bit of a popularity contest, but that's the nature of the beast.
Well, hang on before we do that. So we're talking about doing that without interviews.
Without interviews.
Well,
and here's the thing, Matt, we could have that ready by the next board meeting.
Personally, it's a good idea. Okay.
You don't need a compliment, man.
For giving
Everybody's
structure.
got slammed at one point.
Well, hey, I've been outvoted every time. but
I have more votes than tonight than I have.
I just don't. I just don't know that. I don't know that it would be fair to all the applicants for all of them to not get an interview, and then then make a decision on the 3. Ms. Hamby?
I was just going to point out, I've applied for jobs in the past where you don't always get called in for that interview whenever you apply. They do go by your resume and your application. So I don't see that it would be a disgrace or a problem. They just don't fit what we are looking for. Okay. So therefore, I feel that that would be a great idea, and get the top 3, whatever, or top 4. I'm for the top 4. I don't know why, but it just top 4.
Okay.
But anyway, it just keeps coming to mind. But anyway, and get it to that point, then go from there and do our physical interviews, like you said, and then if we have to, take it down to the top 2 after that. Weed it on down. It don't matter to me. And take them out in the community. Let them meet go in the schools and what we were talking about.
Okay.
Would that have to be public? If an individual school board member in this system ranked their preferences, my top preference, in order to narrow this list down?
I mean, all of your meetings have to be public.
But if our rankings were, let's say, sent in to you, a well-known, reputable, honest man.
He's a lawyer, remember that. Sorry, Earl, couldn't resist.
And you compiled the top scorers and said these are the top 4 scoring candidates. I mean, or whatever number we agreed on.
What are we scoring them on?
Whatever you're
just the
gleaning from the resume and research that you're willing to do yourself.
Well, looking at the resumes themselves, we've got some pretty impressive resumes
Yes, we do.
that would extend, I think, far beyond maybe 3. You know, and you really don't know somebody. I mean, I can write it on paper and make anything sound really, really good.
I agree.
When you're talking with them, it makes a difference. Y'all do it however you want to, and I'm fine. But I just like to see the warm body, see what their responses are, and you know, if it takes an extra day, it takes an extra day.
Okay, Ms. Carden.
To our parliamentarian, we've already got a motion saying that we were going to interview the top 7. Would we not have to, somebody that was on the positive motion, have to go ahead and do a new motion to change that?
Yes.
Yes, we would.
Somebody would have to.
Thank you.
That was on the winning side would have to bring it back up for discussion.
7 of them.
I'm going to go ahead and do that. I move that we change the amount of candidates to interview in person.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Parliamentarian, but I think that all that we can do right now is she could make a motion to rescind that motion,
That would be the cleanest way.
and then we would have to come back and do another motion.
I move to rescind my previous motion regarding the 7 candidates to be interviewed.
And I second that.
I don't know, but I'll tell you what, just for discussion, I'll second it just to make sure that it's clean, and then we can discuss it. Okay? So the motion is to rescind the motion that we made earlier in the night to interview all 7 candidates with Tennessee license. Okay? The motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
So we would be saying we would not entertain the idea of
All we're doing with this motion is we are rescinding that motion and we'll start over.
And we may come back and
then-
decide to do the 7 anyway.
And then we'll have to get another motion on how we're going to interview. Okay? Everybody understand?
Yes, sir.
We're going to do a roll call.
Any discussion?
Oh, well, I opened it up for discussion. We're still open for discussion.
I just want to echo what our attorney said. This is probably the single most important task that this board undertakes. And we don't need to rush. I think Mr. Brock spoke to that too.
And I say amen out loud.
Okay. So, does everybody understand the motion? All right. I'm about to run out of paper. Mr. Safety,
Yes.
Ms. Paris, Ms. Hale,
no.
Mr. Brock,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yay.
Ms. Hamby,
Yes.
Ms. Boston,
No.
Ms. Cargy.
Yes.
Chair votes no. I lost again. I'm used to it. So, that motion carries 6-3. Okay, so now we will open it up for motion for whatever else you want to do. All eyes are on you, Mr. Brock.
I have a question for our attorney.
Okay.
Can it take place that school board members could turn in a ranked preferential list of DOS candidates to you, and you then report to the board which number of candidates received the most interest.
I don't think that you could anonymously turn in a ranked list to me outside of an open meeting and me just reveal to the board, here's what, to me, there's just not enough transparency there, Mr. Brock. I think the board would need to have an open meeting. You can then submit in writing who your top 3 candidates are, turn those into the chair just like you would on a vote for committee or officer, and I could then announce, you know, who the top 3 are. But as far as doing it, I mean, I'm understanding what you're proposing to involve some level of anonymity, and I don't think that would be appropriate.
Were you wanting it to be anonymous, Mr. Brock? Or,
I did not. I did
Okay.
not. I just thought that it might eliminate some of the
Get it?
personal pressures that some people might be under. No, I don't like the idea at all. But I was looking for a way through it.
I understand.
well, could we submit them all to you with our names on them and not be anonymous? Or would you prefer to have it do the way you talked about, have a meeting and have everybody rank them?
And you don't really rank them, you just vote for
Well,
who
you-
your top 3
Right.
or 4 would be, turn them in, and then you,
Based upon the application alone,
Yes, that's what they're talking about.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. King.
could we include our 2 internal candidates and then come back at our next meeting and pick 2 more apiece? Make 4 total.
but there may be some on the board that are not wanting the 2 internal candidates.
Then that will become known, won't it?
But whenever I was talking about weeding it down, I don't mean that, I don't know. I feel like we need to look closely at everybody. So I don't know that that was a right decision. We probably should talk to them all in person.
I'm not comfortable without interviewing somebody. I mean, just looking at a resume, I'm like Miss Boston. I mean, you can put lipstick on just about anything and make it look good.
there's a quote, but what is it? You can
Put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, but I would be more comfortable with talking to everybody, but I got voted down. So, Miss Hamby.
I'm going to make a motion that we go back to what we had originally decided with interviewing the 7 that are licensed in the state of Tennessee. I think we need to hear from them.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay.
Or Miss
I'm sorry,
Hagan
repeat
second.
that.
I make a motion that we go back to the original plan of interviewing the 7 that are licensed in the state of Tennessee. I think, for one, that takes a lot of the guesswork out. And I think that it also gives everybody an opportunity to meet them face to face and know what they want.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. King.
we've already voted that down once.
Okay, I'm making a new motion.
She
On the same
rescinded that
night?
motion.
Can I not make a new motion on the same night?
I think we've already voted on it, voted it down.
Well, no, it passed.
Passed it,
It
but I
passed
rescinded
and I rescinded the motion.
That's why we voted it down on the second go-around.
Okay, I'm kind of lost here.
I am too.
I am too, because that's,
Hang on just a second now. We voted to do the 7 candidates. Okay, that passed. Then we voted to rescind that, okay, and it passed. So I don't
How many
think-
times can the same motion come up? One meeting.
I don't know.
Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Patton.
Unless it failed, I think you can.
Well,
if
okay,
it-
my question
it
is,
passed, so.
well, my question is, can somebody that on the prevailing side bring it up again?
Which is
Which would be,
Miss Haley.
Me.
okay. I don't know, Mr. King. I really don't.
I would like to
Not
make a
because
motion
you're just
to waive the parliamentary procedures here, to waive those procedures which, by Robert's Rules of Order, prohibit us from recasting a vote once it's been repealed.
Did you say that was a motion?
I'll second
Okay, got a
that.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Okay, so what we've just done is we've opened the door to take Mrs. Hamby's motion again.
Okay, for the record, I believe the motion passed 6-3. I think we had 3 noes. If I heard right. I thought Miss Hale, did you vote no?
Which
The one we just got.
This one, we're
Waive the parliamentary.
waiving the parliamentarian so that I can make the motion.
No, I said
Okay,
yes.
I'm sorry, I misheard then, so it was 7-2 then.
Listen,
Unless-
I
unless
just want to
it's
make this
fair.
comment. I know this is the most productive meeting in the 5 times that I've been placed in a position to vote for a director of schools. This is a productive meeting. We're hashing things out, and I'm very proud of us all. So it may appear confusing, but we're working solutions. We're trying to find a solution, and I'm proud of you all.
Now, I appreciate that, Mr. Safety, and I want to reiterate what he says, but I also want to thank everyone, because we can disagree without being disagreeable. This board has proved that several times over, and I appreciate that. Okay, so
now I
Ms.
am
Henry.
making a motion
Okay,
that we interview all 7 of the Tennessee licensed applicants for the director of schools.
okay. We've got a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, good.
Miss Hale, you can have the second.
Okay. Okay, open for discussion.
Mr. Chair. I understand the concern regarding anyone can make something look good. I think the difference that we're dealing with is when you're looking at Criticum Vitae, when you're looking at an educational resume, it's a little bit different in that the credentials are indeed the credentials. Somebody's education has already been vetted out. If they're already in there, if they've got a doctorate, they've got a doctorate. If they've got an EDS, they've got an EDS. If they've got a master's, they've got a master's. That's a non-debatable. So there's number 1. Number 2, their experience is their experience. If they've been a principal, if they've been an administrator, if they've been, you can't fake that. So that's why I believe being able to whittle down based on resume in this experience is a little bit different than, putting in my application like I did to, the housing authority where, you can gloss things up a little bit. Not that I did, Miss Kathy. But it's a little bit different when you're talking about credentials. Credentials are credentials, and you can't fake or gloss that.
But credentials don't make you do a good job.
Credentials are still credentials, and you get the whittled down based on the credentials.
Okay.
That's
And
my- that's
I
my-
understand, well, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm sorry, I just still like to be able to see people and talk to them and get a feel for the person. Mr. Brock.
My issue is that we're turning the clock back to 30 minutes after this meeting started, because we're exactly where we were at that
That's
point in
true.
time.
I agree.
And the big question is, can we interview 7 candidates? Can we find days that we all will agree on? And we haven't been able to do it for the last 2 hours. So, however this vote goes, I think people need to be thinking about that.
Ms. Hamby.
And No motions on the floor, right?
Your motion.
You got a motion on the floor.
Besides mine, okay, we're still discussing.
Yes, we're still
Okay.
discussing your motion.
I thought we'd done and approved it.
Nope. Nope.
My mind is doing this, okay, because it's like, okay, this. Okay, I'll wait until after we're
Okay.
done with that.
All right, so I'm going to do a roll call vote because I know it's going to be close. Okay, Mr. Safety.
Yes.
Ms. Paris.
What was that motion?
The motion,
Then we're gonna
motion-
interview the 7.
we're going back to interviewing all 7 candidates.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, yes, Ms. Paris says yes. Ms. Hale,
Yes.
Mr. Brock,
No.
Mr. King,
Hey again.
Ms. Hamby,
Yes.
Ms. Boston,
Yes.
Ms. Karki.
No.
Chair votes yes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion passes 6-3.
Okay.
Ms. Hamby,
I make a motion that we interview 3 on April 2nd, 4 on April 9th, weed them down from those interviews, and do the final interviews on the 16th of April.
no,
The 15th?
When would we meet,
No.
Becky, to?
2nd, 9th, and 16th.
Oh, okay.
so that'd be 3 Saturdays.
What we were contemplating anyway.
Okay. Well, I'm just making sure everybody understands the motion. Okay, so the motion is to do interviews on the 2nd and the 9th. Do all 7 on those 2 days.
Yes, 3 on one day, 4 on the other.
And then come back on the 16th.
And we could have a meeting in between to come down to the final, or whatever.
Or whittle it down on that Saturday.
Yes.
Okay.
And how many, 3 or 4? To whittle it down to how many?
I would think 4, but
That's fine.
Well, let me,
Are you putting that in your motion?
yes.
To whittle it down to 4?
Yes.
No, don't put that in the motion.
Not. Let's just get the.
Okay, all right.
Okay, we'll just.
Okay, that's not part of the
Okay,
motion.
not part of
The
the-
motion is.
Okay.
The motion is to interview on the 2nd and the 9th, all 7 candidates,
Yes.
and then come back on the 16th to whittle it down to the top 3 or 4.
Yes.
However, whatever we decide.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Discussion, Ms. Karki.
As I've stated numerous times, I am unavailable the 2nd and the 9th.
But you also said you wouldn't have to be here.
Okay.
I don't have to be here, but I would like to be. I'm still a member of the board. Those were the specific dates that and you're talking 3 Saturdays again. I'm sorry, I'm out. Y'all figure it out.
Okay. All right.
Don't forget your phone.
Is there any further discussion? Yes, Miss.
Yeah, why?
Miss, wait a minute, hang on just a second. Miss Boston had her hand
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry.
that's okay. I just want to maybe point out that April the 6th, I know that we had a Saturday of interviews the last time, and then we came back the following Monday or Tuesday, whatever, and voted. April the 16th is the Saturday
After.
before Easter. I will be having to dye Easter eggs on that day. Could we make that specific night on the following Monday or Tuesday? And that doesn't interfere with.
I don't have a problem
And
with
people
that.
are good, off on Good Friday, and you do the whole Easter hoopla if you have small children.
So instead of the 16th, come back on the 19th and,
Well, we could,
It's your motion, but.
well, now this is your motion, but you said the 2nd and the 9th, and then we could actually come back sometime during the week. We don't have to do it on a
I just
Saturday.
wanted to make
whittling down
everybody aware.
process.
Now, that 3rd Saturday loses its appeal to me. I'm just.
okay, we could come back on the Okay, we're in discussion, so.
Yes, we're in
Okay.
discussion.
We're doing 3 interviews on the 2nd, 4 interviews on the 9th. We could come back on the 12th and decide
And whittle it down
on
from
who
there.
yeah, whittle it down. So come back on the 12th and do that. And then we can set up
Right,
from that point when our final interviews will be.
and how we integrate
Yes,
public discourse.
Okay.
yes.
All right, so now,
So my motion.
so you want to change your
my-
motion to the 12th instead of the 16th?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Hale, I think you made the second. Are you willing to amend your second?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the motion on the floor is to interview on the 2nd and the 9th of April, and then come back on the 12th to whittle it down to the top, whatever we decide on.
That is awfully open-ended, guys, until we decide what we're going to settle on.
I'm gonna say
Come on now,
4, the
give
top
me
4.
something solid.
I'm
Okay.
putting that in my motion.
She's-
We will come back on the 12th to whittle it down to the
To the
top
top
4.
four. Ms. Hale, will you amend your second to the top 4?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the motion is to interview on the 2nd and the 9th, and then come back on the 12th and narrow it down to the top 4 candidates. All right.
Are we still in discussion?
Yes, we're still in discussion right now.
So the intent of the 12th is to narrow it down to 4,
Yes.
with the intent of doing what with the 4?
We're gonna have a final interview.
So we're going to interview them twice.
Yes.
We're going to interview 7. The 4 that we end up choosing is part of the 7, and then we'll interview the
And
top
they don't
4
have to,
again.
yes, and they don't have, yes, the top 4 will get a second interview.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr.
which 3 go first?
I don't know. We
Throw
can,
throw them in a hat and draw names.
we can do that.
And then that way it makes it
Okay.
fair for everybody. Nobody's picking and choosing who goes first and who goes
Interviews
last.
are not unusual.
No.
Okay, any further discussion?
Now,
Mr. Safety?
I would just say, I like the idea of whittling it down, of selecting the candidates and having a vote on it. And that's the reason why I would support this motion, okay?
Okay.
I would prefer 3, but let's move on.
Any further discussion?
I agree with Mr. Safety.
Okay.
We might still be in session when we do this.
Okay, does everybody understand the motion? Okay, Mr. Safety,
Yes.
Ms. Paris,
Aye.
Ms. Hale,
Yes.
Mr. Brock,
No.
Mr. King, Ms. Hamby,
Yes.
Ms. Boston,
Yes.
Ms. Corgie's no longer here, chairman votes no. Okay. So as of right now, the motion fails unless Ms. Paris changes her vote.
Not changing my vote.
Okay,
How
then
does it fail?
They
We've
never
got 4 and
ever
3.
say
It's-
anything about
you have to have
board meeting on a
5.
Sunday and everything is Saturday, Saturday, Saturday. And that's my day for church.
Okay.
So, what's fair for
It's,
us?
we have to
Have a
have,
majority.
we have to have a majority to approve anything, so there has to be 5 votes, on anything. And, so that motion fails. Okay, I'm going to
Mr. Ennis,
I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn
thank you.
and that we think about this and we come back, and we'll set another special called meeting and, try to get this worked out again, okay? So yes, Mr. Safety.
I think that,
Hang on, guys, Mr. Safety's talking, please.
at what point will the director of schools take her leave of absence? How many vacation days does she have built up, and at what point will you want to take advantage of the accrued vacation days that you have?
So I plan to be on the job until June 30th, but I had planned to take the vacation days that I have in June to give the new person ample time to move in, to acclimate, make decisions that would be best for the district. I want to do whatever is I'll give up my vacation days. I gave up vacation days when I transitioned into this job. So I will do whatever I can do to help the board transition a new person in, if that new person wishes to have my help.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
We've got a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. I appreciate everybody staying.